Doing today. Uh, I love hearing people actually able to talk back to me. I know I'm not on the screens yet for those at home, but I will be here in a second. I am? Okay. Okay, cool. Um, so I know I don't look like the guy you normally see on a Wednesday night. I'm not Pastor James. I actually just hope that I'm able to teach well enough to honor what he normally does. Um, so I'm gonna tell a little story, and then we're gonna pray, and then we're gonna get into the Word. Um, so when I was a junior in high school, I already got my call to ministry, and I already knew I'm gonna be a youth pastor. There was no doubt in my mind I'm going to be a youth pastor. And so I was living this life of being a youth pastor. And then this lady who I value a lot, I value our friendship. And she asked me this question. I'm going to ask everybody here and everybody at home this same question. No matter what age you are, I want you to think of this question. What do you want to be for God? Because you know, whenever you see a little kid and you're like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they tell you, I want to be a firefighter, or I want to be a Power Ranger. That was my answer a lot, if you're wondering. When I was a kid, I always told everybody I want to be a Power Ranger. Or I want to be a Pokemon trainer. That was one too. But the question I'm asking is not what do you want to be when you grow up, because some of us are already grown up and we've already been through life. But what do you want to be for God? How do you want God to use you? If you could think of anything in the world, do you want to be the next John Maxwell? Do you want to be the next Stephen Furtick? Do you want to be anybody, the next Billy Graham? Or do you want to be a servant? Do you want to be somebody who kind of just works in the back and makes it sound good or makes people be able to see the pastor? Do you want to be that supporter to the pastor? What do you want to be for God? And you know, as a junior who thinks that I know the world and I know everything that's going on, I'm like, I want to be a youth pastor. And she said, no, 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 no. That's what you want to be when you grow up. That's not what you want to be for God. What do you want to be for God? And it stumbled. I was like, okay, what do I want to be when I grow up? And the only thing I could think of at the moment, it's the same answer I'll give you right now if you ask me, is I want to be a vessel. I just want to be a pot that God will use. I don't want to be nothing special. I don't want to be the next famous pastor. I don't want none of that. I want to be a vessel, whether that means that one of my youth in this youth group is going to be the next Billy Graham, and I'm just here to teach them, or whether that means that I'm just here to make somebody smile, or to change somebody's day, or to give somebody that might be going to hell and let them know about God. Whether it's that, whether it's any of those things, I want to be a vessel. I just want to be somebody that God will use. All y'all can agree with me, right? That we just want to be somebody God will use. Whether you have a bigger calling than that, whether, like I know from Micah, it might not be actually what he wants, but I see it, is maybe he's going to be the next big singer. Maybe he's going to be the next Chris Brown, not the secular singer, the singer for Elevation. And I know everybody at home, like, who is Chris Brown? Just Google Christian Chris Brown, and you'll know who I'm talking about. I love laughter. Makes me feel like I'm actually funny. So we're gonna pray, and then I'm gonna get into the Word. So if you would all bow your heads with me. Holy Father, I pray right now, Lord, don't allow me to speak, Father. Like I just said, Lord, I want to be a vessel for you. Lord, allow me to just be the vessel that you speak through tonight. As we talk about your greatest vessel, Lord, let your words be spoken. In your holy name I pray, amen. So, like I said in my prayer, we will be talking about the greatest vessel to ever live, John the Baptist. We're going to talk about a very sad time in his life, but I'm going to kind of talk about his whole life. Pastor, if you're watching, I really hope you're not mad at me for doing that. I know you won't be, because I think God has something for us today. So I will be starting in Matthew 14:1, going to verse 12, because that's our reading for today. It says, I want to make sure you have it that way, that everybody can see it too. Okay. When Herod Antipas, the ruler of Galilee, heard about Jesus, he said to his advisors, "This must be John the Baptist raised from the dead. That is why he can do such miracles." For Herod had arrested and imprisoned John as a favor to his wife, Herodias, the former wife of Herod's brother, Philip. John had been telling Herod, "It is against God's law for you to marry her." Herod wanted to kill John, but he was afraid of a riot because all the people believed John was a prophet. But at a birthday party for Herod, Herodias' daughter performed a dance that greatly pleased him. So he promised with a vow that he would do anything she wanted. And at her mother's urging, the girl said, "I want the head of John the Baptist on a tray." Other versions say a platter. That's where you get the whole phrase, head on a platter, because this is what's about to happen. Then the king regretted what he had said, but because of the vow he made in front of his guests, he issued the necessary orders. So John was beheaded in prison. His head was brought on a tray given to the girl, who took it to her mother. Later, John's disciples came for his body and buried it. Then they went and told Jesus what happened. So, kind of gruesome what happened. You know, John's kind of living his life. He's doing his thing. He's doing what God told him to do from his birth. And this lady hates him because he's speaking the truth. So, truth sayers in this room and online, remember, if you say the truth, it's going to make the world mad. The truth doesn't make people happy. What does a pastor always say? Either you're going to accept the truth. Somebody help me, Micah. There it is. It's either going to make you free or it's going to make you mad. There you go, Pastor James. There's your little quote. That's what happens in this moment is either this lady's going to accept the truth that he's saying is, hey, it's not lawful for you to marry your brother's wife, or it's not lawful for you to marry your husband's brother, or she's going to get mad. And what does she do in that anger? She gets this fit of anger and she wants him dead. And it even says Herod wants him dead. But Herod's like, okay, I'm going to be reasonable. I understand what happens if I kill him. And then she gets her daughter to do this thing and to mess up this whole thing. And Herod understands what happens. And next thing he does, he kills John the Baptist. And no big thing happens. Nothing. There's no, the world doesn't go dark for a long time like it happened with Jesus. Nothing huge happens. He just died. And they moved on. The disciples came, got his body, buried him, and that's it. And so I know all of us Christians in here are thinking, is that what my life is going to be like? Am I going to live my whole life and then nothing? Well, I have some good news. Because John, it might seem that John's death was in vain and he just died and it wasted away. But if you read a little further, and I don't want to break too much into what Pastor's going to teach next week, but I'm going to break in a little bit. If you read a little further, can somebody give me the title of the next section? Somebody in the room? Jesus feeds the 5,000. Isn't that the greatest miracle that Jesus ever did in his entire ministry? So in the beginning of that story, Jesus hears about his cousin dying. He says, I need to go away, and I need to go be alone. And then the 5,000 follow him. And what does Jesus do in Jesus fashion? Feed them. This dude is depressed. I'm telling y'all, if I lost a loved one, I don't think I could do ministry that next day. If I lost a loved one that week, I don't think I could come to church that next Sunday or be here that next Wednesday. I don't think I could. But Jesus was forced to do ministry right after he heard his brother or his cousin die. And what did he do? He said, all right, God, do your thing. And he does it. And he does this great miracle. And then after that, what does it say? Jesus goes into the mountains and he prays. And then what does he do after that? He walks on water. So you're telling me that if I had the power, if I believe in Jesus, which we all do in this room and all of us at home do believe in Jesus, that if you let God use you whenever you are in the worst part of your life, that you can do miracles like that. Because didn't Jesus say we could do more than what he did when he was on earth? And so if we just live what he said and we understand these things, we could feed 10,000. We could run on water. We could do so much more than what he did. And that's not in my notes. That is all from him. But that's just understanding that, yeah, life happens. People die. But I'll tell you a little story. August 18th, 2013, my grandmother passed away. My grandmother was my world. She was my favorite person on this planet. She was the only person who actually believed I could be a Christian, because I was an atheist. Then I got saved, and she actually got to see me be saved for 1 year. And then she passed away. Well, that year I was broken, and I was like, and I know y'all can see these tears welling up in my eyes. It's all right. I'm gonna keep teaching. Well, what happens is she passed away, and almost a year later, we call it April. April of 2014, my youth pastor says, hey, Brandon, I need you to lead this group of kids and do ministry at the homeless ministry here in Shreveport called The Hub. And I said, all right, I'll do it. And I meet this man he's this homeless man. He tells me he was on American Idol. And the crazy thing is, I looked him up, and I don't remember his name right now, but I looked him up and I couldn't find his name. But he was on American Idol with the year Jordan Sparks was on. If any of y'all have American Idol knowledge, he was on that year. And if you can find this long, dreaded-haired man who has a beautiful singing voice, please show it to me, because I still have not found a video of him singing on American Idol. But that, not here nor there. He lost everything after he got kicked off of American Idol. He lost all of his money. His girlfriend left him. His parents took all his money. He lost everything. And he's sitting in this homeless ministry with us, and he's like, hey, even though all this happened, I can still sing. And I'm not going to sing for you. But he says, and he starts singing Amazing Grace in a room about as big as where all our tables are, and everything's filled. So just imagine this room that we're sitting in, and it's filled with people, and they're just all talking. Everybody's having their own little conversation, and then everybody starts hearing Amazing Grace. And then people stop talking. And then everybody starts singing Amazing Grace. And he stops and he looks at me, and remember a little thing. I did not tell this man my name. And he says, Brandon, you are going to be a shepherd to many. Or no, a shepherd to some and a pastor to many. And in that very moment, I didn't know what that meant. And I asked my pastor, I said, hey, this guy that I didn't tell my name just said this to me. And my pastor said, Brandon, I think you might have just got a call. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means. And I started living my life, and I was like, and I just kept living, and then more people started saying, Brandon, you might want to start thinking about going to a Christian college and learning about religion. And more and more and more, and then some of the people that I care about started telling me, Brandon, you should do ministry. And so I said, you know what, God? If this is what you're telling me to do, I'll do it. And I fell on my knees and I prayed. And I remembered in that moment that my grandmother told me to never forget about my dreams. And now I'm sitting in front of you, a youth pastor. And so mine is not as cool as Jesus's, but I got my call not too long after I lost the greatest person in my life. And that's why, Miss Jackie, me and you have such a good friendship. I told you look like my grandmother. And so that's why we have such a good friendship. But I'm going to go back to the Bible so I can get back to what he wants. Yeah. So the next verse I'm going to do is Matthew 11, verse 4 through 15. It starts and it says, Jesus told them, go back to John and tell him what you have heard, what you have seen. The blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cured, the deaf hear, the dead are raised to life, and the good news is being preached to the poor. And tell him, God blesses those who do not turn away because of me. And John's disciples were leaving, and Jesus began to talk about him to the crowds. What kind of man did you go into the wilderness to see? Was he a weak reed swayed by the breath of the wind? Or were you expecting a man dressed in expensive clothing? No, people with expensive clothes live in palaces. Were you looking for a prophet? Yes, he is more than a prophet. John is a man who the scriptures refer to and say, look, I am sending a messenger ahead of you. He will prepare your way. I tell you the truth. All who have lived, none is greater than John the Baptist. Yet even the least person in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he is. So now, let's take this John the Baptist guy and let's talk about him. What did Jesus just say about John the Baptist? So I'm going to give you a little bit extra to that verse before I get into that. So what happened, where I kind of jumped in, John the Baptist is doing his ministry, and he's telling all these people about Jesus. He's saying, come on, the kingdom is at hand. Learn about Jesus. Come know what God has for you. Come know. And he's paving this way. And so he sends a messenger to his cousin and says, are you the guy that I've been waiting for? And I kind of imagine John, he's in prison at the time, and I kind of imagine him a little bit more distraught. I kind of imagine him a little sad, and he's like, I'm at the end of my ministry here. Are you the guy that I've worked so hard for? Are you the guy that I'm going to die for? Are you the guy that I've given everything for? Because if you're not, please tell me. And Jesus says, tell John, the deaf can hear, the blind can see, the lame can talk, the lepers are healed. And all he's saying is, yes, John, I've done everything that I promised. I've done everything that God said I would do. And I stand in front of you and I'm still doing it even though you will die. And I feel like there's like a little P.S. in there, in that letter that we don't talk about, where he says, P.S., I'm going to do my biggest miracle when you do die. And so John lives this humble life. And even Jesus says, there is none greater than John the Baptist. There is none better than John the Baptist. How would y'all like to know when you get to heaven that Jesus says, there is none greater than Micah Sasser. There is none greater than Jackie Page. There is none greater than Sherry and Bruce Gramling. There is none greater than y'all. That would make you well up inside, right? That would make you be like, oh my gosh, yes. That's what he's saying, is there's none greater than John the Baptist. That he did all this stuff. He did all this work and none of it was in vain. Because I know some of you might be thinking, I've heard it so much, and some of you might hate me for saying it, but I've heard people say, oh, the church is dying. Oh, the church is dying. I don't believe that. I believe that the church is restarting. I believe that the church is going again. That, yeah, we might have lost some. And I came in 2 years ago, coming up this next December, and I understand I didn't see that many people, and yeah, we've gotten lower. But every Sunday I'm seeing a new person. I can't wait till everybody comes back so y'all can see all these new people that keep coming too, because we're going to all be vessels. Thank you, Dakota. That we're all going to live this life that if we sit here and we say, you know what, Brandon, I'm going to live like John the Baptist. I'm going to live a life where I don't care what my ministry comes out to be. That I am willing to die for my ministry and still know that my ministry didn't happen right. Because I don't know if it actually happened. I don't know, really, we don't really hear if that letter that Jesus wrote from the disciples actually made it back to John the Baptist. So think with me here, what if John the Baptist didn't get that message? That he died thinking that his ministry failed. He died thinking, okay, Whatever I did, God's going to use it. Don't we all say that? Sometimes we'll talk to a person about Jesus and we'll start kind of throwing the little seeds, and then they kind of push back and we're like, all right, cool, God's going to have it. That's what John the Baptist kind of did. He was like, all right. And if anybody knows of a verse where the message gets back to John, please tell me so I don't sound like an idiot. But I don't think it did. I mean, it doesn't actually say it, so it might have not. And we don't know how John felt when he died. All I know is that he died, and I believe that he died without knowing. And so all of us that are scared of the unknown, we got to get out of that. Because if you're scared of the unknown, if you're scared of reaching your hand into that dark bag, you never know what could be on the other side. You never know what God might want you to go into. Because when I tell y'all I got a call from my youth pastor saying, hey, you should go to this church, I was scared. And I sat in that back pew over there, and I sat there and I was kind of quiet. And then all these people start coming up and hugging me and shaking my hand, and I'm just kind of sitting in the back. And each one of y'all came and said, hey, without even knowing who this kid was that's just kind of sitting in the back pew. And now I'm working as your youth pastor, and I'm loving my life, and I'm loving everything that I get to do for this church. And so it's the unknown. How many of y'all that came and shook my hand that day knew that I was going to be your youth pastor? 0 of y'all, because I didn't know I was going to be y'all's youth pastor. I knew I was just coming here to meet the pastor. That's about it. And so I want everybody just to think about that. John the Baptist was a vessel, and he was a very humble vessel at that. Because the next verse I'm going to go to, and I'm going to guess this, I might be wrong, but I'm going to go to Matthew 3, verse 11. Yeah, this is exactly where I wanted to be. It says, I baptize with water those who repent of their sins and turn to God, but someone is coming soon who is greater than I am, so much greater that I'm not worthy to be his slave, to carry his sandals. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire. He is ready to separate the chaff from the wheat with his winnowing fork. Then he will clean up the threshing area, gather the wheat into his barn, but burning the chaff with a never-ending fire. Then Jesus went from Galilee to the Jordan River to be baptized by John, but John tried to talk him out of it. I am the one who needs to be baptized by you. He said, so why are you coming to me? But Jesus said, it should be done, for we must carry out all that God requires. So John agreed, baptized him. After his baptism, as Jesus came out of the water, the heavens were opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descend like a dove settling on him. And the voice of heaven said, this is my dearly loved Son, who brings me great joy. So we get a little bit of idea of John the Baptist's character from just this little time of him talking. First thing he says, I baptize with water. What I have, that don't do nothing. What he's going to do to you is going to change your life forever. And then he says, I'm not even worthy to carry this dude's sandals. I'm not even worthy to carry his dirty shoes that he doesn't clean, that's been in the sand all day. That's like saying, I'm not worthy to carry this man's gym socks. And he's like, I'm not worthy of any of this, what this guy's going to do. And then he says, I'm not even worthy to be his slave. So do y'all see how humble John the Baptist was? How different would life be if we could all be that humble? If we could be as humble as John was, just do work and not take any credit for it. I try to be, but then I'll catch myself saying, oh, I said this. And then I'm like, oh, I've ruined my entire message because I said it, not him. And But that's the power. If we were all as humble as what John the Baptist was in this moment, then, oh my goodness, our personal ministries would be on fire. Because he says, he looks at Jesus, and Jesus is sitting here, and he comes up and he says, okay, baptize me. And John knows who this dude is. That's his cousin. He looks at him in the eyes and goes, nah, bruh, you baptize me. And he is like, no, I'm not, you baptize me. He goes, that's what God wants. There's a verse that I have on my paper, but I'm going to kind of paraphrase it. If y'all want to know my notes, I'll tell you later. But it says, John says, or it says in John 1, it says that John the Baptist was come to pave the way. That he was supposed to be the voice in the wilderness. You heard that in the other verse that I read. He's supposed to be the voice in the wilderness. He's supposed to be the voice calling out. He's supposed to be the voice before actual Jesus. Because how I kind of picture it, and remember I'm a youth pastor, so if it seems kind of dumbed down, that's just me. You have the voice, so you hear it first, right? So imagine that we're all in this darkened forest, and you hear this voice. And then after you hear the voice, you see Jesus. That's what John was. And that's what I believe all of us are supposed to be. Is that we're not supposed to, we're supposed to live as Jesus, but how many of y'all are perfect in this room? None of us, right? Miss Jackie, I know you're pretty close. I know you're like a step away from it, right? But we're not. None of us are perfect. And I wish we were, because then, we would be such a great example to the ones that don't know Jesus. But it's so hard for somebody who's been through as much as probably all of us have been through to be able to tell a non-Christian, hey, I've been where you are. I know, it's fun, right? You should come over here. Especially with my generation, because if y'all have done any stuff on my generation, I know a lot of the older generations don't like my generation, but it's okay. My generation and Micah's generation, we're in the same generation. I'm at the end of the generation. A lot of people don't like that I'm in the end, but I am at the end of the generation. Our generation is the generation that doesn't really believe in Jesus as much. Our generation is the generation that kind of thinks that they can do their own thing and then come back later. And I don't think that works. I just don't think that works. I think that you can't have all this fun and then think, I can go over here later, because what if later never comes? So if you live this life, you have to be an example. And I really don't know where I'm going anymore, but I'm just going to let God talk, because hopefully something comes out of this. But if you live the way that this says, that John was just living, he did what he was told, and that's it. He was told to be the voice, that's it. He didn't want to be nothing else, he didn't want to be nothing more. John didn't even like the fact that his name was known everywhere. He didn't want none of that. He wanted to kind of be that background guy. And I think living in the background is what kind of made this verse be trampled over a lot. Because how many people, if I just tell you that, hey, I'm reading Matthew 14, verses 1 through 12, how many of y'all are going to know exactly what I'm talking about before I've already read it to you now? But how many of y'all are going to know exactly what that is? Nobody, right? Because nobody remembers John the Baptist. Because John was kind of in the background. But if there was never a John, there would never be a Jesus. So remember, you introverts, you quiet people that kind of work in the background, if there was never y'all, Brandon, you're a great example. If there was not a Brandon, there would not be alive right now. So that is the example, that if we don't live the life that John even lived, how can we even say that we're going to live like Jesus? Because perfect is a long way from what John was. But how can we even say that we're trying to match up perfect if you're not matching up John? Because John the Baptist, I don't have any things of him being a bad guy. But I know in that verse, Jesus says that he was a reed swayed by the wind. That he was a reed that kind of was moved. And I know some of us, I know I've been told this by so many people. I go with the flow. I'm a very non-planner. I do not like planning. And I'm a very go with the flow kind of guy, and that's what happens. And that's what John was. But you got to get out of that. You have to understand that there are some faults, but you can't focus on the faults. You have to live on what he did. And John the Baptist was a martyr, I believe. Because if John wouldn't have died, how would we have known what happened next? Because when he died, like I said before, Jesus did his biggest miracle ever. Pastor told me one time, he said, what was the greatest miracle, what is the only miracle that is talked about in every book of the gospel? It's feeding the 5,000. And so, feeding the 5,000 was in every book of the gospel. What story led to the feeding of the 5,000? John the Baptist dying. So if John the Baptist would not have died, we would not have had the most memorable miracle. So I'm going to kind of turn this spiritual real quick. What in your life are you holding on to that's stopping you from doing your feeding the 5,000? I know it's kind of bad for me to compare John the Baptist to sin, but I'm not saying John the Baptist held back Jesus. I know I just put myself in a really bad place. But whenever John died, he inspired Jesus to do this miracle. And so if we live like John, who, like I said, it might have looked like his life was in vain if you don't look at Jesus. But I really feel like if we live like John without an idea of the light has to be on me kind of life, then we could really have something special. And we could really lead to something special. That's how I live my life. I live my life with the idea of my youth are going to be the next Billy Graham, or going to be the next Stephen Furtick, or going to be the next whatever kind of pastor you think of when I say mega, super great Christian pastor. Whoever pops in your head, that could be the person you talk to. Yeah, that could be the next Pastor James. But what I'm saying is that you don't know what God has next. And so I don't know what's holding you back, but live that life. Let it happen. And so, Micah, if you're ready, you can start playing. I'm going to do a prayer, and then we're going to get going. I don't know if anybody got anything out of this. I know I went down a few rabbit trails, but I got something out of it when I was writing all these notes that just, John the Baptist was so humble. He was the ideal vessel. And he was the vessel. And so if your goal is to be a vessel, read about John the Baptist. There are plenty of verses I didn't talk about that talk about it. So I hope you got something. So I'm going to pray, and then Micah's going to sing. Holy Father, I pray right now that you do work, that I'm a broken vessel. I'm a sinner who needed a Savior, and I got one. And so, Lord, I pray that you do your work and that you change the world through anybody who hears this message. In your holy name I pray. Amen.
I'm caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment, and I never wanna leave. I'm not here for blessing, Jesus, you don't owe me anything, but more than anything that you can do, I just want you. I'm sorry when I've just gone through the motions. I'm sorry when I just sang another song. Take me back to where we've started. I open up my heart to you. I'm sorry, Lord, when I've come with my agenda. I'm sorry when I forgot that you're enough. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. I'm caught up in your presence. God, I just wanna sit at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment, and I never wanna leave. God, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything, but more than anything that you can do, I just want you. I just want you, and nothing else, and nothing else, and nothing else will do. I just want you, and nothing else, and nothing else, and nothing else will do. I just want you, and nothing else, and nothing else, and nothing else will do. I just want you, and nothing else, and nothing else, nothing else will do. 'Cause God, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything, but more than anything that you can do, I just want you.
All right. Micah, you're amazing. So I'm gonna do a couple announcements. We don't have anything big coming up, but we kind of do. Sunday we have our Sunday service, so that's always big. I love our Sunday service. Micah's excited. He has a new song, so again, Micah's talented. If you want to come hear a new song that he has, please tune in this Sunday. Pastor James is as talented as Micah is at singing, so he will have a message probably as good as that new song. So speaking of Pastor James, he will be doing an announcement on Friday. He will be doing it from wherever he is. I don't know if he's going to do it in the car or not, but he will be doing it from another location. So that'll be really cool to see whatever beautiful area is behind him. And so yeah, we will have that. And we have small groups coming up. It's actually very important I say that because June 5th, our governor is supposed to say something about us going to phase 2. So if we go to phase 2, then we will be doing small groups from what Pastor says. So be tuned in, be excited for small groups. I'm excited because I get to be in a small group and get to be taught from people. And prayer time. Prayer time is the most important thing that we do. On Sunday morning at 9:30, we will be having our prayer time. We'll be having different prayer cells. Come join us. We'll have some time together to be able to pray. Join us here. I love seeing y'all on my phone here, but I want to hug some necks if y'all are okay with me hugging your neck. So please come. If you're okay with the hug, please tell me that so I can hug you. And so that's everything. I'm going to pray for our country and pray for everything going on, and then after that, we'll be done. So if you would, Holy Father, I pray right now that you bless this time, you bless this church, you bless everybody watching, Father. You bless this country and this state, Father. As I said, Louisiana looks to be going through big changes in the next week, Father. So I pray for those changes, and I pray that we're safe through those changes, Father. In your holy name I pray, amen. So I forgot what Pastor says at the end of this, so hug everybody who's around you, and see y'all later.